The shuttle broke through the thick veil of Earth's atmosphere, its hull groaning against turbulent winds that raged like living creatures. Lightning flickered across the darkened sky, illuminating the rust-red clouds beneath them. Inside the cabin, 6 alien students stared out through reinforced glass, each one struck silent by the chaos below. Chetak adjusted his breathing regulator, uneasy. He had studied the planet's history for cycles, memorized every human artifact ever recovered, yet nothing had prepared him for the raw, untamed violence of the world itself. "It's worse than the simulations," he murmured, his voice clicking through his respirator. Beside him, Ziran leaned closer to the viewport, his eyes gleaming with reckless fascination. "Worse? It's magnificent. Look at that storm front, like the planet's alive." Their instructor, Dr. Korvek, turned from the console, his heavy blue face stern under the cabin's emergency lights. "Alive, yes. And hostile. Remember where we are. This world was classified a Category 7 death world before your species learned to count its own years. Nothing here wants you to live." The students fell silent. Outside, the shuttle descended over a continent swallowed by green, forests reclaiming ruins, rivers carving through metal skeletons of ancient cities. Towering structures of human design jutted from the overgrowth like bones of forgotten giants. They landed amid the shattered remains of what the archives named New York City. The shuttle's landing gear sank into cracked concrete veined with roots. When the hatch opened, humid air rushed in, thick, pungent, and alive with sound. Insects buzzed in swarms. Unseen beasts howled across the distance, and the ground itself seemed to vibrate faintly under their boots. Chetak activated his field scanner. Atmospheric toxins minimal. Radiation negligible. Gravity stable. "It's survivable." He sounded almost disappointed. "Until it decides not to be," Dr. Kaur replied dryly. "Helmets stay sealed. Recorders on. We're here to observe, not to conquer." They stepped into the ruins, moving between towering stone and steel husks draped in vines. The city stretched endlessly, half swallowed by nature, yet still holding traces of purpose. Faded murals, skeletal vehicles, shattered glass that glittered like ice beneath the alien sun. Ziran walked ahead, recording every sight with the fervor of discovery. Can you imagine them living here? Primitive structures, exposed weather, predators. This planet shaped them. "Shaped or destroyed," muttered Chetak. He stooped beside a corroded sign and brushed away the grime. The letters read, "Metropolitan Museum of Art." Dr. Kaur's crest lifted slightly. "That's our first target. The last known stronghold of human culture before the collapse." They entered through a fractured archway. The interior was dark, smelling of earth and time. Their suit lights flickered across broken statues and faded canvases preserved by accident and luck. Figures of marble still stood proud, faces worn but defiant. Ziran paused before a massive painting half buried in debris. A figure in armor stood amid fire, raising a banner toward a blood-red sky. "They glorified war," he said softly, "even in their art." "Perhaps," said Dr. Kaur, scanning the nearby walls. "Or perhaps they glorified survival." Further inside, they found a sealed chamber. Its doors were reinforced, still powered by a faint current humming through ancient conduits. Chetak worked the panel until the seal broke, and stale air hissed outward. Inside was a small archive room lined with cracked terminals and dust-covered containers. One of the devices blinked faintly, a triangular console with human markings. Ziran brushed it clean and pressed a rune. The machine crackled, sputtered, then came to life with a burst of static. A voice emerged, deep, human, weary. "If you're hearing this, then we failed." Every being froze. The voice continued, slow and deliberate, as though addressing eternity. "We called this world home. It made us strong, cruel, clever. But even we couldn't outlast what we became. If you are not of Earth, be warned. The planet remembers. It doesn't forgive." Static consumed the final words, followed by silence. Chaytok's secondary hearts thudded hard in his chest. He knew someone would come. Or he hoped, murmured Dr. Kaur, his gaze fixed on the console. These recordings are older than our own calendar. And yet listen to that tone. No despair. No surrender. Just a warning. Ziran paced the room, restless. Maybe it's just an automated message. Some desperate echo of the end. Or a lesson, said Kaur quietly. A lesson about what it takes to live on a world like this. The students continued exploring the chamber, collecting fragments of data drives and relics, books sealed in polymer, pieces of armor, small crystalline chips that shimmered under their lights. Everything felt deliberate, as though humanity had preserved these things knowing someone, someday, would need to see them. Outside, thunder rolled across the ruins. The lights flickered. Chaytok glanced toward the door. Storm's building again. We should return before. A tremor shook the ground, cutting him off. The floor cracked. Dust rained from the ceiling. From outside came a low, distant roar. Not the wind, but something alive. Dr. Kaur's expression hardened. Shuttle. Now. They hurried into the open, rain beginning to fall in thick, sizzling drops. The air shimmered with static discharge. Lightning struck a nearby tower, splitting it like dry wood. The noise was deafening. As they sprinted through the overgrowth, Ziran's scanner beeped rapidly. Movement north quadrant. Fast. Ignore it, snapped Kaur. Focus on extraction. But curiosity overrode fear. Ziran turned his head, just in time to glimpse a figure moving through the rain, upright, humanoid, and impossibly swift. For a heartbeat, two shapes locked eyes through the storm. Alien and something else. Then it vanished into the haze. Ziran froze. His pulse spiked. There's someone here. Impossible, Chaytok hissed, dragging him forward. Nothing intelligent survives here. They reached the shuttle's ramp, soaked and shaken. Kaur sealed the hatch and took the pilot's seat, his hands steady despite the storm buffeting the craft. We'll regroup in orbit and analyze the data. Whatever this world holds, we proceed carefully. No more assumptions. The engines roared, lifting them from the drowned city. Through the viewport, lightning illuminated the ruins below, ancient steel skeletons flashing like veins of a living creature. Chaytok looked down one last time. Deathworld, he whispered. Maybe not because it kills, but because it refuses to die. Dr. Kaur didn't answer. He only stared at the instruments, where one blinking light pulsed faintly, a life sign, registered from the ground below. Human in pattern. Impossible in truth. Ziran saw it too. Professor? Kaur shut the monitor off. We saw nothing. Understood. The students exchanged uneasy glances. Outside, the storm closed over the city like a curtain, erasing the light, the ruins, and whatever truth might still walk the surface of Earth. The shuttle rose higher, leaving behind a world that refused to rest, a planet that had outlived its own conquerors. Somewhere below, unseen and silent, the storm moved around something that still breathed, still watched, and still remembered. The shuttle descended again. Hours later, its hull scorched from the first encounter with Earth's chaotic weather. Dr. Kaur had ordered a cautious return, officially to collect more data, unofficially to confirm the impossible signal they had detected before leaving orbit. None of the students spoke as the vessel touched down near the outskirts of the ruined city. Even Ziran's usual bravado had dulled into wary silence. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving a bruised sky and a heavy mist that crawled between the ruins like breath. Chaytok's scanner pulsed with quiet regularity. Life readings same as before. Stationary. Deep below ground level. Dr. Kaur studied the coordinates. We'll investigate. But remember, our mission is observation, not contact. Whatever survived here has endured conditions none of us were designed for. The group advanced through streets overrun by vines and shattered metal. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the distant creak of wind through twisted towers. Every shadow felt inhabited. Ziran's nerves twitched at every flicker of movement, though most proved to be wildlife, small, fast and eerily adaptive. They reached the coordinates, an open crater where the city's surface had collapsed into the old subway network. The entrance gaped like the mouth of a predator, exhaling air thick with decay and minerals. "We're going down?" Ziran asked, his voice tight. Kor nodded. The signal came from below. Humanity lived beneath the surface during its final years. That's where the truth will be. Chatok led the descent, his boots clanging softly on metal as the team entered the tunnel. Their lights swept over graffiti half-eaten by moss, angry words, and desperate prayers carved by human hands. Farther down, they found vehicles crushed under debris, bones fossilized in place. It wasn't just death, it was evidence of a long, defiant struggle. "Look at this," Ziran whispered, kneeling beside a wall. He brushed away grime to reveal a child's drawing, crude but recognizable. A figure holding a flag beneath a blazing sun. "They drew hope," he said softly. Dr. Kor scanned the surroundings, unease flickering behind his calm. Hope kept them alive longer than logic would have. Deeper still, the air grew heavy with heat. The ground trembled intermittently, distant, rhythmic, almost mechanical. Then came the sound, a deep, guttural rumble echoing through the tunnels. "Life form?" Chatok asked. "Multiple," replied Kor. "Closing fast." A blur of motion erupted from the darkness, a creature lunging, its hide glistening with moisture and scars. It was unlike anything in the xenobiological records, six-limbed, half reptile, half mammal, its eyes glowing with feral intelligence. Plasma fire flared as Ziran reacted on instinct, striking the beast in midair. The explosion lit the tunnel like dawn, but it only enraged the swarm that followed. The creatures came in coordinated waves. They didn't just attack, they hunted, flanking and hurting their prey with unnerving precision. One leapt onto Chatok's back, its claws screeching across armor plating. He slammed it against a wall, driving his blade into its throat, green ichor spraying across the tunnel. "Fall back," Kor commanded. "They're too organized." The group retreated through twisting corridors, the creatures closing in. Ziran fired again, the plasma bolt igniting a pocket of volatile gas. The resulting blast hurled them backward, collapsing part of the ceiling. When the smoke cleared, Terran, one of the quieter students, was gone. Only his calm beacon flickered faintly from beneath the rubble. Chatok tried to dig through the debris, but Kor stopped him. "He's gone. We move before we join him." "No," Ziran snapped. "He could be alive." Kor's eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto him. "Then hope will kill you next. Move." The words hit hard, but they obeyed. They stumbled through dripping corridors until they reached an open chamber, a maintenance hub filled with rusted machinery and shattered glass. For a moment, they paused to catch their breath. Ziran leaned against a wall, shaking. "We shouldn't have come back. This planet isn't dead, it's waiting." Chatok's voice was low. "Did you see how they moved? They weren't mindless beasts. They hunted like soldiers." Kor exhaled slowly. Every species here learned to kill efficiently. If humans survived in this environment, they must have become something extraordinary or terrifying. Before they could respond, a faint sound crackled through the comms. A voice, broken, distorted, but undeniably alive. "Help underground. Sector 12.
Terran."
Ziran's eyes widened. "He's alive." Chatok looked at Kor, expecting refusal, but the professor's expression softened. "Sector 12 is close. We move carefully." They followed the beacon deeper, through corridors that sloped downward into ancient, reinforced tunnels. Here the architecture changed, less ruin, more design. Functioning lights flickered weakly along the walls. Generators hummed somewhere in the distance. "This place still has power," Chatok whispered. "Automated systems," said Kor. "Or something maintaining them." They entered a large chamber filled with pods, hundreds of them, sealed and empty. Each bore a human symbol and faint temperature readings. A cryogenic vault. The air was colder here, and something about it felt wrong. Ziran moved toward one of the pods, brushing away frost. Inside, he expected bones or dust. Instead, he found a human body, intact, preserved, eyes closed, face calm. RHA stepped closer, reverent. They were sleeping. Core's mind raced. Suspended animation. They were waiting to wake. Before anyone could react, a low metallic chime echoed through the chamber. A single pod at the far end hissed open, releasing a cloud of mist. The students raised their weapons, but Core lifted a hand. Hold your fire. Through the vapor, a figure emerged, tall, human, muscles taut beneath a weathered suit of reinforced fabric. His face was lined, scarred, but unmistakably alive. His eyes scanned them with sharp, calculating precision. For a long moment, no one spoke. The human's voice, when it came, was quiet, steady, and filled with an exhaustion that carried the weight of centuries. You're not from here. Ziran swallowed hard.
No.
We're explorers. From. I know, the man interrupted. I saw your ship. You shouldn't have come. The alien group froze, processing the impossibility of what stood before them. Core stepped forward carefully. You're human. The man's lips curved in something between a smirk and a sigh.
Was.
Now I'm what's left. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. The man glanced upward, unbothered. They followed you. The surface predators. You've led them here. Core stiffened. We'll protect you. The human's eyes hardened.
No.
You'll survive if you listen. He reached for a control panel, activating automated defenses that flared to life around the room. This world isn't kind. It's a test. Everything that lives here earns it. The aliens exchanged uncertain looks as the tunnel echoed with distant screeches. The human turned toward the darkness, his voice calm but resolute. Welcome to Earth, he said. Now, let's see if you can survive it. And as the lights flickered red, the aliens realized that their academic mission had ended. What began as a study of a dead civilization had become a battle to understand why it had never truly died. You said. The tunnels trembled again, dust raining from the ceiling as the alien students braced themselves behind the cryogenic pods. The air crackled with static and the distant sound of claws scraping metal echoed through the darkness. The human, the last one, the man they had awakened, moved with deliberate calm. His every motion was economical, born of long habit and instinct rather than fear. Dr. Core studied him in silence, noting the efficient precision with which the man adjusted a weapon older than any in the galactic archives. Who are you? Core finally asked. The human didn't look up. Captain Elias Ward, last active officer of the United Earth Defense Command. His tone was dry, matter-of-fact. You can call me Ward. If we live through the next few minutes, we can talk names and titles. Ziran crouched beside one of the pods, eyes darting between the entrance and the human. They're coming closer. Whatever those things were, they're hunting us. Ward's gaze flicked toward the aliens, assessing them with something between curiosity and pity. They were my world's next generation. Mutations. Predators adapted to chaos. We built this place to hide from them. RHA frowned, scanning the corridor. You mean your own planet turned against you? Ward gave a low, humorless chuckle.
No.
We turned it into what it is. The planet just adapted. He raised his weapon, an ancient kinetic rifle, and aimed at the tunnel mouth. Now stay behind cover. Those creatures don't stop. The first wave hit seconds later. Half a dozen beasts tearing through the entryway, their shrieks piercing the stale air. Plasma fire blazed from the aliens' rifles, illuminating the chamber in bursts of blue light. Ward's rifle roared, each shot striking with brutal accuracy. The creatures fell one after another, but more came, their bodies twisting through the debris like liquid muscle. Ziran shouted over the chaos. How are they coordinating? They're not just beasts. Ward reloaded calmly, his movements automatic. They're the product of centuries of survival. Evolution at full throttle. Every generation deadlier than the last. The weak died, the strong learned. When the final creature collapsed in a heap of blood and bone, silence settled again, thick and uneasy. The aliens lowered their weapons, breathing hard through their respirators. Ward simply exhaled once and turned back toward a console, checking readouts that glowed faintly under his hands. "You fight like a soldier," Core said softly. "I was one," Ward replied. "Then I became something else. When humanity started dying, we tried to preserve what we could, knowledge, memory, a few of us in cryo. The system woke me when the sensors detected movement again. That was you." RHA stepped forward cautiously. "You've been alone here. How long?" Ward's eyes were distant, unfocused. "Long enough to stop counting. The clock broke a few centuries ago. I kept busy." Ziran tilted his head. "Why stay? You could have left if you'd found a way off-world." Ward gave him a look that froze the question. "Because this is home. You don't abandon what made you, even when it breaks you." The professor regarded him with something resembling respect. "You knew we'd come." Ward shrugged. "Eventually. Every signal we sent into the void had to reach someone. I just didn't think they'd be students." The tension eased slightly, though the air still carried the hum of danger. The alien scanners pulsed with faint readings, dozens of life forms surrounding the base, but not entering. Watching. Learning. Ward caught Core's glance. "They'll wait. They always do. They study patterns before they strike again. You see why we called this a death world." Core nodded slowly. "A world that punishes weakness." "A world that rewards adaptation," Ward corrected. He gestured toward the cryopods. "That's what we tried to do, adapt. But you can only endure so many winters, so many wars. Eventually the world moves on without you." RHA lowered his scanner. "Yet you endured." Ward's expression softened, a flicker of something human cutting through the weariness. "Endurance isn't glory. It's just not dying yet." He moved toward another console, entering commands that brought up flickering holograms of human cities before they fell. Skyscrapers glittering in sunlight, oceans blue and alive, children running through streets. Then, images of fire, floods, storms, and silence. The sequence played in haunting rhythm. Ziran stared at the projection. "You destroyed yourselves." Ward nodded. "We tried to master the planet. Instead, we forced it to fight back. Every empire, every machine, every miracle we built, it all fed the storm. And when the end came, we did what humans always did." Core tilted his head. "What's that?" "We fought harder." The words hung in the air, sharp as a blade. For the first time, the aliens understood the gravity behind the warnings in human archives. Not fear, but respect for something that refused to break. Ward turned off the projection. "You came here to study death. What you're seeing is life, at its most honest. Painful, brutal, unyielding. That's what made us." RHA voice was quiet. "And now, what becomes of you?" Ward looked toward the sealed corridor that led deeper into the facility. "There are still systems running here, defense grids, archives, weapons. I'll keep them operational as long as I can. Maybe one day someone will rebuild. But it won't be me." Ziran frowned. "You could come with us. Leave this planet. Tell your story to the galaxy." Ward smiled faintly, the expression carrying more sadness than joy. "You wouldn't understand it the way it was meant. Out there, you have comfort, safety. Here, everything you have, you earn. If I left, I'd forget what that means." Dr. Core studied him, seeing not just a relic of a dead species but a mirror of something unspoken: discipline, defiance, survival. "Humanity wasn't conquered," he said quietly. "It evolved beyond civilization." Ward met his gaze. "Civilization is what happens when things get too easy. Earth never gave us that luxury." Another tremor rippled through the tunnels, this one deeper, resonant. Ward glanced at the monitors. "They're regrouping. We'll have to seal this level and move topside. The storm will cover our trail." As they prepared to move, RHA lingered by one of the frozen pods, his reflection faint against the glass. Inside lay a woman's face, serene, untouched by time. Were you trying to save her? He asked softly. Ward paused. I was trying to save everyone. But survival chooses its favorites. No one spoke after that. The group followed him through the dim corridors, past rusted machinery and echoing footsteps. The closer they came to the surface, the stronger the air smelled. Ozone, metal, rain, and something ancient that vibrated with life. When they finally emerged into the night, lightning split the sky, revealing the city below. Wild, chaotic, beautiful in its decay. Ward stood on the edge of the broken platform, wind tearing through his hair, eyes scanning the horizon like a sentinel guarding the ghost of a world. You came looking for extinction, he said quietly. But you found endurance. Remember that when you leave. Dr. Core nodded. We will. Ward's voice lowered, almost a whisper drowned by the thunder. Then maybe you'll understand why the galaxy called this a death world. It's not because everything dies here, it's because everything refuses to. Dawn broke over the horizon like the slow opening of an ancient eye, its light filtered through clouds the color of bruised gold. The alien shuttle stood half-buried in the cracked earth, its hull scarred and blackened from the storms that had battered it through the night. Inside, Dr. Core and his students prepared for departure, their silence carrying more weight than words could bear. None of them looked rested. None of them were the same beings who had first descended to the surface. Captain Elias Ward stood a few meters away, framed by the jagged skyline of the ruined city. The wind caught his tattered coat, lifting it slightly as he stared toward the distance where thunder still rolled over the mountains. He looked both small and eternal, a fragment of an age that refused to die. Ziran hesitated at the ramp, his gloved hand gripping the metal rail. You're sure you won't come with us? Ward turned, the faintest trace of a smile touching the corners of his scarred face. If I leave, who remembers? Every ghost needs a storyteller. This world has mine. HFY stepped forward, his voice low but steady. The galaxy could learn from you. From your species. Ward shook his head. They'll learn when they're ready. You don't teach endurance, you earn it. Out there, you've forgotten what that means. He reached into a pouch at his side and withdrew a small crystalline data core.
Take this.
It holds our archives, our history, our failures, our victories. Everything that made us what we were. Maybe you'll understand us better through it than through me. Dr. Core accepted the device carefully, his expression unreadable. And what should I tell the Senate, Captain Ward? What should I say when they ask what we found here? Ward met his gaze, eyes sharp and calm. Tell them you found the truth about death worlds. That they're not places of death, they're places where life refuses to surrender. Lightning arced across the far-off clouds, the sound reverberating through the air like the beating of a giant heart. The storm seemed to acknowledge his words. Ziran looked out across the wasteland, his voice quieter now, stripped of its usual arrogance. When we first came, I thought this planet was a warning. Now I think it's a mirror. HFY nodded slowly. It shows us what we've lost, the cost of comfort. Ward gave a faint laugh, the kind that held more memory than mirth. Comfort kills faster than war. Remember that. Dr. Core placed a hand briefly over his chest, a gesture of respect in his culture. We will record your name in our archives. You'll not be forgotten. Don't record my name, Ward replied softly. Record the lesson. A sudden burst of wind swept across the landing site, carrying the scent of ozone and soil. The storm was gathering again. Ward tilted his head slightly, as though listening to the pulse of the planet beneath his boots. You should go. The weather's turning. Earth doesn't like visitors. Core inclined his head, signaling the others to board. As the ramp began to retract, Ziran lingered for one last look. Ward stood motionless, framed against the flickering light of the rising storm, his rifle slung across his back. In that fleeting image, Ziran saw not a relic but a warning written in flesh and resolve. The shuttle engines ignited, their hum growing to a low roar. Dust spiraled upward as the ship lifted from the ground, slowly climbing through the boiling clouds. Through the viewport, RHA watched Ward grow smaller until the storm swallowed him whole. For a long while, no one spoke. When the ship broke through the upper atmosphere, silence fell like a sacred thing. The view outside was stunning. Earth turning slowly beneath them, green and gold and blue, scarred yet unbroken. Zirand finally broke the quiet. "Professor, do you believe there are more like him?" Cord didn't look up from the data crystal. "Perhaps not in body, but in spirit? Every world has something that fights to live. Humanity just mastered it." He placed the crystal into the ship's secure vault. "We will take this back to Ziron Prime. The galaxy will know what Earth was, and what it still is." RHA leaned back in his seat, staring at the planet below. "I thought we were explorers," he said. "But now I think we were pilgrims." Kor's gaze softened. Every explorer becomes a pilgrim when he realizes he's standing before something sacred. The shuttle shuddered as it broke orbit, engines flaring. In the distance, Earth's storms glittered like veins of silver lightning across its surface. The world seemed alive, watching them leave, ancient and aware. Zirin's voice was barely audible. "Do you think he'll survive?" Kor glanced at the planet once more, then at the readings flickering across his console, energy spikes, shifting weather, erratic biosigns. He smiled faintly. "He already has." As the ship accelerated into the dark, Ward stood once more on the ground below, his figure dwarfed by the vastness of the storm. The wind roared around him, tearing at the ruins, filling the air with the smell of rain and metal. He knelt, pressing his hand against the earth, feeling the pulse of the world beneath it. "Still here," he whispered to no one. "Still fighting." The storm answered with thunder, and he rose to face it, weapon steady, gaze unwavering. Lightning reflected off his eyes, twin sparks of defiance in the gathering dusk. Above, a trail of fire streaked across the sky, the alien vessel leaving orbit, a brief reminder that life, wherever it went, carried the story of Earth with it. In the silence that followed, the city groaned, trees swaying in the wind. The planet exhaled, its surface shifting, growing, adapting as it always had. For the first time in countless years, Earth had been seen, not as a graveyard, but as a crucible. Far beyond the clouds, aboard the departing ship, Dr. Kor recorded the final entry of their mission log. His voice was calm, almost reverent. Designation: Sol 3. Classification: Deathworld. Observation complete. Conclusion: death is not the measure of danger here. Survival is. And perhaps, in that truth, humanity endures forever. He ended the recording, the hum of the engines filling the quiet. The students sat in reflective silence, each lost in thought, each changed in ways they couldn't yet define. Through the viewport, Earth turned slowly, its storms flashing like the heartbeat of something eternal. It was no longer a world of the dead. It was a reminder of endurance, of consequence, of the terrible beauty of life that refuses to yield. And somewhere beneath those endless clouds, Captain Elias Ward stood watch over the ruins of his kind, unbroken and unforgotten, the last sentinel of the death world that had made gods out of survivors.